Hi, everyone. I want to give you a summary of the CIO Innovation Insider Lunch that happened this week. I think one of the stories that came from this was this concept of little bets and what that really means. There was a story about a professor who in the pottery class said to the class that he broke it into two groups, one in which 90% of the grade was determined by the final clay pot that was pushed the team's final clay pots that were pushed through the kiln, and 10% was done by what they did throughout the semester. And then the other group, they were actually measured by the amount of clay that they baked throughout the semester, with 10% of the grade being the final clay pot that was produced. And there was extraordinary difference between the quality of the clay pots, where the 90% of the grade was determined by the last clay pot, versus the ones that were measured by the amount of clay that they baked throughout the semester. So this is really fascinating because it's the concept of small bets, and small bets is really, really important to innovation, and it's very important for the CIO to understand this, for you to understand this, because I gave the CIO Innovation Insider Lunch group attendees a challenge, and I said one of the challenges as we broke into groups was, if you were given $5,000 to $6,000 as a slush fund for innovation this year, what would you test? What would you test? What projects would you bring up, and what would you try to design and experiment with? And it was interesting because some interesting ideas came out of it. One was, well, one table was kind of paralyzed. They're like, we can't do anything with $6,000. And I had they said, we at least need 50,000, 100,000. I said, no, these are small bets. We want to take small bets. What would you do? And I said, what about if you I said, does everybody here have data? And of course, everybody has data. And I said, well, why can't you test machine learning or AI tools on this big data? I said, all of you have using Microsoft, why can't you test big data analytics through Upwork.com? Why don't you go to Upwork.com, rent for $1,000 by a Ukrainian machine learning expert to build an application that does some rudimentary data analysis on a segment of data. And so, oh, that's interesting. That's a test. You're not only testing your ability to obtain external resources to help, but you're also, it forces you to think about what it is that you want, a story you're looking at the data to tell you. So that's an example of a test. Another was a test idea that came up from Microsoft. Why can't, if you have a Microsoft partner, why can't you go to the Microsoft and you can break free a BI and Cortana project to test some assumptions you have with your data? You can use BI Power BI and Cortana, and you can get $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 of Microsoft funding to pay the vendor, to pay the VAR, to pay the Microsoft partner to demonstrate their expertise and to build you a proof of concept around a data set. And even if they're hardcore Power BI folks, they might not be data visualization folks. Maybe one of the gaps is you want to become better at data design. So maybe you can have an experiment around a data design effort and have a $2,000 data design, or you do a bake-off between three $1,000 data design efforts to kind of get exposed to some different tools from different vendors, etc. These are all experiments. And another person in the group did a design on augmented reality in a museum that that was part of their tour that they were giving for customers. So another person wanted to be a data broker and wanted to learn how to use API interfaces, because they didn't want to build this big framework application. They wanted to learn how to use Microsoft Cloud services and develop APIs as a broker between they were a middleman in this transaction service, but they could test some of these concepts and services for a very inexpensive amount. I think it was $5,000. Another woman wanted to test Amazon Alexa, actually had tested Amazon Alexa skill, built that for her organization, went to their annual conference with 7,000 users and 27,000 users, and actually had 7,000 attendees use the Alexa skill. And they did that for less than $10,000. So, I mean, right there, I've gone through 7 test cases that you could potentially use a 6 to 7,000, actually one example I gave you was 10, but essentially sub $10,000 tests for innovation. And companies are wasting that much money in random stupid stuff. So you could definitely find a way to get a slush fund, an innovation fund, whatever the fund you want to call it. You can, but it's for yours, earmarked for experiments. So come to the Innovation Insider series at lunches. I hope you've gotten some value from this particular education piece I put out. Click down below if you'd like to join our mailing list so you're notified of more events in the future. Have a great day.